And good day. Welcome to another episode of Territories Talk. Territories Talk was founded almost 7 years ago to give voice to the people of the British Overseas Territories to talk about what's going on in our countries. What we find is that a lot of what is going on in any given island is going on in other islands. And we're able to relay these stories to each other and about each other and get to know each other closer because as we have the internet now, we use that as an advantage to speak to each other. One of the unfortunate realities are in all and almost all the overseas territories is that we have a rise in violent crime. Now let's be clear. The Caribbean was founded on violent crime. It's called colonialism. Start off with Christopher Columbus, then the English, then the Portuguese, then the Spanish, then the Danish, then the French. We have a legacy of violent crime, genocide that has gone on in the Caribbean. If me as a black man is speaking a European language, it's a product of violent crime. Unfortunately, the violent crime that is happening now is our own people, particularly young black men, practicing crime on each other. There is no island that is immune from this, or very few islands that are immune from this. Some islands have had scores of murders in 1 year. Some islands have had a little bit of murders in 1 year. But let's be clear, one murder is too many. In Bermuda in particular, there is no family that has been unaffected by murders, right? If it's not your cousins, your brother, or your neighbor, or something. The fact is, we're losing too many of our young black persons to murder. We're losing too many of our young black persons to prison. And that's happening in every island. So today, I have on someone who I shouldn't say I consider, is my cousin, is my big cousin, who is intimately involved in addressing these issues. And today I want you to get to know him because a lot of people just know the little blurbs that's in the media, the blurbs that people say about him that are untrue. I want you to get to know who is this person because it would go a long way towards where we need to go as a country and as a region. So without further ado, I bring in my big cousin. I call him Roy. Some call him Pastor, but I call him Roy. Pastor Leroy Bean.
Good afternoon, Chris, and thank you for having me on your show.
Good afternoon, Pastor.
Yes,
What's up, Roy?
everything's good. I'm happy to be here and looking forward to the interaction and also information that we can give to those that are listening.
So, in the common Bermudian parlance, who's your people, boy? Who's you?
Okay, well, on my mom's side, it's from the Bean and the Heel clan. That's on my mom's side. And on my dad's side, I have the Wades and the Pitchers and Burgesses from St. George's. And so that's my makeup and where I come from. However, I did have someone that played an instrumental part in my life of raising me as a son who was a Braun. And, you know, that was something that really started to shape my life, even in that area, as far as a new family and making now family ties.
Yeah, so let's just clear this up because people's gonna say, well, how you get to be your cousin? His dark, his yellow skin and you're black. You know how people are. So as he spoke about his Mr. Maxwell Brown
Yeah.
was the brother to Boo Brown, who passed away exactly 5 years ago today. So
Yeah.
blessings to Uncle Boo on his fifth anniversary in heaven.
Yes.
And Uncle Boo or Charles Boo Brown is the patriarch or one of the patriarchs of the famous Brown famous clan. So that's how Roy is my cousin.
Yes, and he definitely he was someone to look out for. That family took us in, you know, in a way that I don't even think sometimes blood ties could actually surpass it.
Yeah. Yeah. So tell us about the reds and the hills because
Okay,
the and the pictures because these are all distinctive Bermudian names.
okay. On my mom's side, her father was a Bean, and in actual fact, the Beans actually originated out of Somerset, and her on her mom's side, they were Heels. And so we used to have a grandma. Her name was Ma Heel. She was a Christian woman and really always prayed for the family, and she interacted. That's and she had, I think it was 13 children, and one of them, I guess many of them would know, that would be Ralph Heel, which was one of my uncles, and his son Ricky and Corey and those guys. So that Heel family, that particular Heel family, was related to us. The other thing, though, on my grandpa's side, my mom's dad's side, they were also related to the Heels, but not the same Heel. He was related to Benjamin Heel, Hilton Heel, that was instrumental in starting the PLP, and they were real activists, especially for the black community here in Hamilton Parish. I mean, throughout the island, but I would say Hamilton Parish, and they were related to I guess, the Francis, Bill Francis, and I believe the mom was a Heel. And so that Heel family, especially on my mom's side, that legacy was definitely people that fought for the rights of people that were disenfranchised, especially the black race.
Yes, and tell us about the picture side and the reds.
The pitcher side, my grandmother's father was a Burgess, and her mother was a pitcher, and they came from the pitcher side. Dolly Pitcher and my father were actually first cousins. My uncle Sidney was my grandma's younger brother, and so we had a few of them. My uncle Donnie, my uncle Sidney, and they, so that's the pitcher side of the family. That my aunt, who is actually currently living, when I'm looking for information, my aunt Elsie Phipps, I would run to her, and she would always, she'll break everything down for me, and so I would get to know exactly who connects to who.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, and that's the thing, right? Is that what what people around the world they do? They look at your surname and think, well, all your family is just that one surname, and they discount that you have. Everybody has four grandparents, right? Everybody normal has four grandparents. Let me put that way.
Yes.
And each one of your grandparents have four grandparents. So all of us, no matter who you are, have these multiple families that we are biologically and sociologically related to. And whatever your last name is, it doesn't denote all who you are. We had a commenter from brother John Woolrich, who I can say he said, "Hey family." So I don't know if you're speaking to me or you, because it's my cousin too, right? So
Yeah.
for those who don't know, John Woolrich is one of those that created "Proud to Be Bermuda" song. He's a master musician, master teacher, and
Yeah.
an overall good guy. But let's not
Yeah.
get sidetracked.
Yeah, but no, John is one that has always carried himself with integrity, and he's has been a leader in especially in the music industry, but also in the way he walks his life. I actually went to school with his wife Donna, and she was also a gracious person in school.
So tell us about Roy's upbringing. Like, where did you grow up? Your schools,
Okay.
so on and so forth.
Well, I was actually brought up in Hamilton Parish in Coral Hill. Uh, my mom, I came from a single parent home. I had my two sisters and myself, which was raised by my mom, and we stayed in a two-bedroom cottage without a bathroom and without a modern kitchen, I would say, because we either had to pump water, or we had to dip water, and so we were raised. But it was a clean and happy home, regardless of whether we had the natural amenities or not. We definitely Had a my mom was loving. She was a hardworking woman. She worked two jobs. I can remember her knocking off and having to go back out, and sometimes neighbors looked after us and so on. But she was a hard working woman, and so we were always brought up with that work ethic. It was important. I mean, like I said, we didn't have all the modern amenities. You know, we didn't have a toilet and tub and so on. We used to have to use an outhouse toilet and use a galvanized tub. So I'm brought up in that era. And even though while I'm not that old, in some of the people that can identify with it, I was brought up in that era. We also had some gracious people around the neighborhood that definitely poured into my life. I know that Princeton Bailey was one of them that also poured in my life, and he treated me almost just like his children. Everywhere they went, I went, and that's something that I kind of get touchy about every time I talk about it. But yeah, I was raised in a good. I had uncles that were around me. They were great. My uncle Gene, who they call Bunkers, works at Gorham's, and my uncle Eddie, which they changed his name to Terry Wine. And each one of these guys definitely poured into my life. They um, sometimes, especially my oldest uncle, was a little. He was just really adventurous. But I thank God for those that poured into my life, and it was many other people that poured into my life. But I am who I am today because of them.
And which schools did you attend?
I attended Francis Patton, which was in the parish, and from there I went to Whitney Institute. And while I was in Whitney Institute, I actually got kicked out of Whitney Institute, and my mom sent me to a place called Firebird Academy in Maine. And so I actually got kicked out of there. Came back, I done my GED, and came back to Bermuda and started to work and so on. And later on, I went back after I had done my GED, went back into college and started to pursue higher education.
Yeah, yeah, I remember when you lived next door on Hermitage Road.
I was going to be
Um, you I remember coming to your house one day, and you had this. I never forget it. You had a drawing of a Honda 50. I don't know
okay.
if you drew it, but it was a drawing of a Honda 50 on your bedroom door. And I
Yeah.
always remember, I was like, man, my cousin could draw real good, like, you know.
In actual fact, I drew it. And what's so interesting is I look at my children. I know my youngest daughter had a real, gift for drawing. And my oldest daughter, when she was coming along, had a gift. I mean, they never pursued it. I mean, the youngest one pursued it probably more. And they were, gifted in that particular area.
Mhm. So tell us about your mom and your sisters. So tell us about your children and or grandchildren.
Okay, I am married. I have my wife is Dr. Carla Bean, works at child and adolescents. I also have four wonderful children, and I have Leroyce, which is my oldest child. She is currently at Cedar Bridge as a counselor, and I have my daughter Laronda, which works as a nurse. I believe is at Agape House. Um, I fathered a young man, David, and so I have him. He has some challenges, but got a loving heart, and so I definitely make sure I spend time and interact with him. And then I have my youngest son, that's from me and my wife, and he currently goes to Salters, and that's my family. But I also have two grandchildren, wonderful grandchildren. They're older than my son. I have Nairobi Mills, who is known for being an 800 runner for Bermuda. And my youngest grandson would be Zion Mills, who loves to act. And so we interact with each other and try to keep that contact. And I thank God that the importance of influence and the importance of the older people controlling the narratives so that they can be positive role models within Bermuda. So I'm very thankful to God with how He's allowed that to happen.
Yeah, and here's the funny part, right? Well, which speaks to who we are as Bermudians. So your grandson Nairobi,
Yes.
his his dad, his I should say his grandma, his paternal grandmother, and
Yes.
my father are her cousins, right?
Okay.
And at one point they used to live in the same house that you lived in.
Okay.
Not at the same time, but
Yeah, yeah, got you. Yeah. Yeah,
at
I
different
remember.
things.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but obviously from two different angles, right?
Yeah.
So one day I was going to this was when Liberty Theater you was open. I walk downstairs and I see one cousin, right? Then I see another cousin. Then I see that they're actually at the movies together. I'm like, then it dawned on me, okay, that from two different angles. So
Yeah.
one is
Yeah.
from the brown side and one from the famous side. So
Yeah.
it's cool, right?
Yeah.
And then your your daughter's mother, she's related to my granddaughter. So
Okay.
it's just to say, it's just
Sure.
showing you which ties into what we're going to talk about later on. It
Sure.
shows that even with different surnames, irrespective of the surnames, once you actually do a little bit of research, it don't take much. You peel back the onion layer and you find out you're related to a lot of people.
Sure. Yeah.
So you said so far we're talking about you getting how did you feel getting kicked out of two schools?
Um.
Besides
I,
besides on actually getting slapped upside your head.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, to be honest with you, I think that growing up, I think sometimes we experience trauma and certain things that happen to us and we don't even know, and we make that even normal. So to me, it appeared to be normal until I started to really take an evaluation. Really sit back and look at my life and to see what was what before I could start to understand exactly what was actually transpiring. So at that particular time, I mean, my mom, she didn't play around. I mean, she obviously, if some of these people today, they would call it abuse. But I'm grateful at my mom. She was a great woman and done what she needed to do to empower us, and I still see her doing it with my children and my children's children. I see her empowering, and they love her. I mean, they love my mom. Very firm, but definitely a family person. Was very loving.
We have a little shout out to you and your wife from Mrs. Cindy Swan.
Okay, thank you, Swan. Yes.
Yes. So you came back, you got kicked out of Freiburg, you came back to Bermuda. Where did you start working then?
I started to work when I came back from Firebird. I believe I started to do some landscaping, and I done landscaping for a bit, and then I went into painting, and from there it led me. I was mixing paint actually. It led me into going to do an insurance course, and I started to work for British American insurance company, and that's where my life started to change, and I eventually started to pursue a higher education from there.
What caused you to pursue the higher education?
I think that what happened is, sometimes when you start to look at the lack of opportunity, and I'm not saying that everything is academic, but I mean even this vocational training, I think that we limit ourselves by not going to pursue certain things that could, in the long run, benefit us and our families. So whether I was academically inclined or not, if I went in to do a vocational, skill or skill train, I can I can still provide for my family. So whether it be a mason, regardless of what it was, plumber, carpenter, I can provide for my family. But also it teaches me something that that I can have, for life. I think sometimes we don't look at that, but I believe everyone that is out there, we have the ability to grow and to expand, especially when it comes in, when it comes to education. And it has no number. Education doesn't have a number, or a number cap put on it, because some people get into their minds that, well, you're too old to be doing certain things, or you're too young. And the truth of the matter is that that's something that is it's an untruth.
So what line of further education did you take once you put your mind to it?
Okay, what I done was I at that time I went to and I will say this here. I started to get caught up with certain things. So I remember when I was younger, playing with firearms and so on. So I started to get caught up into certain things. And what happened is that as my mind started to expand, I wanted to educate myself, that I recognized that I had to participate in certain things. I went to I went to Bible school, and that was with the help of Pastor Lamb. I went to a place called Warner Southern College. I had actually changed my life around. I got converted, and I went to Bible school. And I remember a man, Mac White, who was instrumental in funding, and along with Pastor Lamb and many of these gentlemen that poured into my life in certain areas. And so I'm very thankful even of that. And from there, I came back and I pursued, a degree. Again, this one was to further what I had already started, and I got my bachelor's degree, and it was dealing with counseling, family counseling, addiction counseling. Um, I think I pursued a master's degree in public policy and law. So I started to understand the roles of public policy, but also the actual framework of law and what was necessary. And years later, when I say years later, I'm probably talking about almost a decade later, I went back and I pursued a PhD. And the only reason why I pursued it is because I was trying to expand my knowledge concerning the field that I was working in. And so I got a PhD in psychology and counseling. And what was so interesting is its concentration was on trauma and crisis. And so it equipped me when I went out to understand certain things and how trauma affects certain families and individuals and countries. And so I started to expand my knowledge in that particular area.
So according to you, right, you went from a high school or double high school dropout
Yes,
to someone who got your associate's degree, then your bachelor's degree, then your master's degree, and now your doctorate.
yes.
Correct.
Yeah, it was a journey, but it also shows you that each one of us have the ability, especially when we connect to the right people, to to actually see purpose, being
Yeah,
fulfilled, dreams being fulfilled.
yeah. And you said something earlier that resonated with me, right? Bishop Lamb, the Pastor Lamb you're talking about is Bishop Lamb, or
Yes,
it's
yes,
another.
Bishop.
I know there's quite a few Pastor Lambs in this country.
No, no, it's actually Bishop Lamb. And the reason why I probably refer to him as pastor, because he was the one that was my first pastor. So it's
Mm.
actually it's a term of it's endearment, that so when I say pastor, even when I see him, I say pastor, because it means something to me. My shepherd, my someone that actually took time, poured into my life at that particular time when I needed it.
Yeah, and I will use this as a back in time moment, right? I remember one day I was playing out in the yard, and where Roy and I's house are literally right next to each other. It's probably all of 20 feet difference between his house and my house, right?
Yeah,
So we was out in the yard, and I see this skinny guy walking in the neighborhood, and back then you're like, who's this guy walking in the neighborhood? And I see this guy walking in the neighborhood, and it walks. over to the back of your house, right?
Yeah.
So I'm like, do I have to run upstairs to my Uncle Boo? Yeah, I'm gonna run up there, right? They said, Uncle Boo, this guy just walked around the back of the house, and he made a phone call, and he said, "Oh, don't worry, that's Pastor Lamb."
Yeah.
And this was when he was coming, when Valerie, for those who went to Elliot and um, Victor Scott, Mrs. Valerie Williams, I'm talking about. When
Yeah.
Valerie was getting married, Pastor Lamb, this was back in 1976 or 77, some one of them years. Pastor Lamb was coming doing some pre-marriage counseling before the wedding. So whenever I see the bishop, I always say, "Yeah, I remember when you was a skinny guy. You're still skinny. I remember, I remember his 80 something years old, and I remember when you came walking through Hermitage Road, so I say that to say that he has always been an instrumental part of in the on the Brown side, especially an
Yeah.
instrumental part in the family dirt. So it's no surprise to me that he poured into you because we come from a culture, whether it be Bermuda or other islands, we come from a culture where older men, and I don't mean this in a sexual sense, so let's be clear. Older men, they see younger men and they're like, that boy look like he could shape up to something. Let me see if I could make something out of him because they see or hear what these circumstances are. He might not have a father or his father, might be a father where him and the boy done set. So you need somebody else to come in and influence him. So I say that when you say you, him, and Mr. White, I think you said, poured into you, right?
Well,
That's
Mr.
an
White,
example,
Mr. White actually helped with finances, but Pastor Lamb was probably particular time.
right? So I say that to say that this is the culture from which we've come from, and it has served to build our community over centuries, right?
Yes.
Um, Single parent homes are not a new thing. When during slavery, let's be real, during slavery, um, male slaves were taken to different plantations to impregnate women, and those women raised children on the end until the master did something with the child. So single parent homes are not a new thing. It's not a shameful thing either. But
No.
it does speak to the fact that there's always a need for a male figure, especially for young men, to gravitate to and to help shape these young men. So thank you for sharing that part with us.
Yes.
So how did you transition into, you talked about your education, but how did you transition into being pastor from Leroy Bean to Pastor Bean?
Well, I think the conversion that I had years ago. I think it was when my oldest daughter was young. I actually, you know, um, being mentored by someone that was a pastor. I guess it also started to prepare me for a life to become a pastor. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, being a pastor didn't make me exempt from anything. There were many things I needed to deal with. One of the things that I think people think is that when somebody makes a conversion, everything is totally gone. And the truth of the matter is that's not the case. So it was a journey and a process that I had to walk through to become who I am today.
Mhm.
So when I decided to I guess what would I say embrace the call, I we started to have first of all Bible studies within the house, and then it went from there
Mhm. And then you went from Bible studies in the house to what?
to a church. We went from a church, and don't get me wrong, it's a church is a real work. It's ups and downs. Anywhere it's people, you always there will always be change, transition, and so
Mhm.
you just have to stick to the wicket and continue to plow through, and uh, just lead the rest to God.
Yeah, I just want to take a brief moment to speak on someone here. who poured into many persons. As I said earlier, today is the fifth anniversary of the passing of Mr. Charles Boo Brown.
Yes.
He was a stalwart, shop steward for the bus operators for the BRU. He was a stalwart for Devonshire PLP, and as importantly, he was a father, grandfather to many, myself included. He has multiple children. One is, matter of fact, we sit in Parliament with one of his children, MP Nabutero, cousin,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
Um, and he was a great man. And I say that in the sense to say, I'm using him as an example to say that no matter where we come from as Black people, what our social economic standing is or was, we have he exemplifies somebody that didn't have much necessarily financially, but he had a lot of love in his heart for all who were around him. And his saying, his motto was, "All of we are one." Right? I remember talking to my daddy once, and he said, "Yeah, when I was 16, but I didn't have to work. But Uncle Boo took care of the whole family."
Yeah.
Right? How does one person on a bus driver salary take care of the whole family? I don't know, but um, he did that, right?
Sure.
And so I'm using him as an example. I'm paying tribute to him because this is fifth anniversary, but it's just um, fortunate, right? That I had somebody like him in my life. You had somebody like him in your life. So many others, but he's just one example of what Bermudian men have been and need to be in order to get one generation to where they should be for the next generation, right?
Yes. Definitely.
Yeah. So
Yeah. Yeah. And so, my hat goes off to him. Like I said, he done what he needed to, and like I said, you pour into one, and we each one is going to touch one, and we can start to see that actual life being poured into generations in the future because of one man.
mhm. Yeah. So sorry. So you started off. So tell us a little bit next 5 minutes about your pastoral journey.
Okay, pastoral journey. Like I said, we started off in a house church. We went to Asford Hall. From there, we ended up at Templeton's Hall. Lease finished there, and from there we currently at Francis Patton. But it's working with people is it really you need a grace to start to work with people. And what I find as a pastor, it has a way of training you in a way to restrain even sometimes the way you feel, what you would like to say. So it's a grace. It's a character shape, if I may use that term, where it helps you to look at things from a different perspective, or from, if I may say, from a God perspective. And so, when I interact even with some of the clients today, man, I say, so go the grace of God, there go I. In other words, I was one of them. I was somebody that was doing certain things, but somebody gave me a chance. And so I believe in that restorative factor. And so being a pastor, it is like a lifeline to see many of our young black males and females being restored to the original intent of what they're supposed to be.
So how did you um, parlay that pastoral walk into how can I put it? Interacting with young men who find themselves in the most severest of challenges.
Okay, when I was 13, 14 years old, my mom, my sisters, we used to stay right next to my grandpa. It was actually like a kind of, I guess, about 10 feet away. We stayed stayed with our grandpa. So my mom, cared for her father and so on. And I remember getting a call at 11:45 in the night, and it we were one of the few houses in the neighborhood that had a phone, and was my aunt talking to my mom, and I saw my mom break down, and my grandpa was murdered. He got murdered in Happy Valley. And I never forgot that my mom, she had somebody watch my two youngest, to my sisters, and I went with her to the hospital, and I found out he had got stabbed in his back. And so it was from that sense that I started to, I had to process things. I mean, as a young man, I was kind of angry. I wanted to do something to get revenge. I wanted to do something so that certain things could be done. And I end up making a decision to want to do the right thing. I think that's one of the key things that brought me into a place of wanting to see people restored. One of the hardest things when you lose somebody that's close to you is to express forgiveness. But forgiveness is not so much for them; it really is for you. It's to release you of yourself that you can go ahead with the future. And so, from that aspect, that particular concept I wanted to go in to help and to help families and so on. And I mean, in the meantime, I had many things that happened. I mean, I had cousins that had been killed, brothers, people I just saw not even 10 minutes, 20 minutes ago, getting a call and something happened and so on. And so it gave me the grace, if I may use the term, to deal with many of those issues that I am currently faced with and that I was faced with back then.
So let me ask you this question, right? I I used to go to this barber shop down North Shore called Jason's Barber Shop, which at the time was across from Granite's Barber. Sorry, First Church of God is now called Granite's Restaurant.
Yes,
They had a barber. I actually forgot his name, but he left there and he joined the Bermuda Fire and Rescue Service. And he said one day I saw him years later. He says, "Yeah, you remember me? I used to cut your hair like what her on got left, bro." And he says, and we was talking, and then he says, "You know what? Sometimes as fire and rescue personnel, we need to go see counseling because the things that we see, whether it be a road accident or bike accident or whatever it may be, traumatizes you, right? No human really should see other humans on the worst day of their life, but it traumatizes you. So he said they have an established thing where they have counseling. So in the stuff in the situations that you have to deal with, which again you're seeing not necessarily individuals, but you're seeing some of the families on literally the worst day of their life,
sure.
right? How do you, right, and your team, how do you deal with that? Like, how do you not say internalize it, but how do you not let the internalization of eat you up?
One of the things that when I go to a scene or to a hospital, my focus is really on that individual. And so, sometimes you can get distracted when you're looking for details, so you're looking for that, or you're trying to see the body and so on. Things happening. That's not my focus. My focus is to try to regulate that individual. One of the things that I done when I done my PhD is what we call crisis counseling. And in crisis counseling, what we try to do is to regulate the heartbeat, and I may use that term, because what happens is people get they start to hyperventilate. Certain things start to take place. So what you want to do is come in to bring a calmness. And the calmness doesn't just come by way of how you're telling them to breathe. It comes by way of what you carry. If a person's angry, they come around somebody, they ain't got to open their mouth, and you could feel the anger in the room. Well, it's the same way when we go around families. It's a matter of us keeping our composure and being calm and recognizing why we're there, and the techniques that we use to try to calm that individual. And when I say calm the individual, I'm talking about that even in the grieving state, they could still understand what's happening and respond accordingly.
Yeah, because um, which goes back to the opener, right? Since murder's always been around since Cain and Abel, right? I'm not making
Yes.
light of it, but it's nothing new. Uh, since 2004, we had one incident. 2009 is really when in Bermuda we saw basically murders just almost every month, right?
Yeah, that was. I would consider that to be the recognition of the rise of gang violence when in 2009. Now, that doesn't mean we didn't have murders before that, because I believe one of the first murders that actually we started to see gang violence start to emerge, and we started to see certain groups started to form, was probably the murder in 201. And that was something that became the nucleus for many other things to start to happen. And so,
Right.
yeah. But
Right. So I don't.
nine,
Sorry. Go ahead.
definitely in 2009, we started to see an emerge of certain behaviors being visibly displayed in groups, from an outward perspective.
Yeah. I mean, it's. I mean, every murder that happens, and let's be clear, people get murdered or some people get shot and don't die. Every violent act has an effect on individuals, has an effect on the families. Even if the person doesn't pass away, the family is now living in fear, or the
Yeah.
individual has got to be reconsidering where they're going to live. To be
Yes.
frank, right?
Yes.
Or steps. It's not my job to ask what you all do in the background, because that's the whole point of it. You do it in the background, right?
Yes. Yes. True.
What is important to be relayed to the people of Bermuda, right, is that we have to be, especially in the black community, because let's be real, right? 99.9% of the people who have been murdered have been black. Maybe one or two have been not black, but
Correct.
we have to recognize that in the black community, right? I know some individuals like to attribute it to race and stuff like that. But in the black community, a lot of what was seen is based off of not necessarily structural racism or economic depravity and all these other catchphrases, but it's based off of um, a lot of the murders are based off of nothingness. Like people are just taking up themselves now where they have access to firearms.
Well,
Or before,
I wouldn't necessarily say nothingness. And I mean, I respect the point that you're saying, because there are people that believe that. And the reason why I don't believe it was nothingness is because there are some systemic issues that have happened, especially to the black culture, that has manifested itself for years. I know some people don't want to deal with certain things. We can talk about disenfranchisement. We can talk about the lack of education. We can talk about economic disparity, but what we have a tendency to ignore is the root that caused this. Those things couldn't have happened unless they came from a system, and as a result, that particular system had a way of shaping certain mindsets, causing certain psyches to be developed, and even when we're not aware, it still has an influence on generations, hundreds of years later. And so I think that
right.
that is key.
So the question that I would pose to you is this: we've dealt with colonialism, racism, whatever ism. We've dealt with that for hundreds of years.
Yes.
You and I growing up during the '60s, well, not me, sorry, during the '70s and '80s, we've dealt. All of that was in our backgrounds as well, but
Yeah.
we never saw the decay, the murders that we saw. Yeah, people always got into fights or whatever. The difference between now and then is that people are getting murdered, right?
Yeah, and I think that one of the causes is because when we start to look at now, while I just named a few things that can be contributed to murders, One of the things I think that we have ignored is that we haven't identified education to a lower level. And I believe education plays a very key part in all of this. Now, notice I'm not saying for everybody to be a genius, everybody be a doctor, lawyer, no, but I'm saying that education, whether it be a didactic learning style or something of that nature, that people could start to understand that it has a way of freeing our mind. And I'm not just talking about some book that comes from an SAT and all that. I'm talking about some greater things that need to be looked at. That have caused certain things. One of the things I have discovered, and I was doing, I had wrote a piece in my book, "Gang Violence is by Design," and I talked about the actual these independent countries. And one of the things that I emphasized in the book is these were considered the most peaceful countries in the world. I mean, you dealt with Norway, you dealt with Switzerland, you dealt with Austria, you dealt with Japan. It was a few of those countries that had some of the lowest crime rates in the world because what happened is that there were some things that they discovered and they dealt with. One of the greatest proponents to to contribute to this these peaceful countries was education, you know, and education was a key component because it enlightened and opened and done certain things within people's mindset. The other thing that was quite important was, the general needs of individuals, whether it be having a home that is reasonable, that I don't have to get out and work 10 different jobs, or even having, food and medical care, general necessities. And so they found that each one of them had the same common denominator. And it was the same result, what was said about them as being some of the most peaceful countries in the world. So there are certain components that I think that these countries had, and I believe that we're starting to lose them because we're being priced out. And so here it is. We're looking at a high cost of living. People are battling whether they should get food or whether they should get medication. And as a result, we're finding that the general things that should be met are not being met. Now, this is not to say that our government or anybody else is not trying and doing what they need to do. But what I'm suggesting is that there are some key things that we have lost that we need to get back to. I mean, we have a lot of great old teachers. I can remember, Dean Furbert was my headmaster. I had Marion Robertson. I had Miss Kennedy. I had some great principals, but they took the time to pour in. And what I couldn't understand, they took the time to show me certain methods that I can grasp that particular concept that I needed to grasp. And I think we're kind of, there are some things that we have missed from the past that if we were to implement them back, I think that we can. Am I saying that we'll stamp out gang violence? No, but I believe that we can reduce because we change a mindset within a community, which is so important for the end result.
All right. So, as this is territories talk, if you look above your where it shows your picture, you'll see the crest of 6 different islands.
Yes.
Um, Starting from the left, there's Montserrat, there's Turks and Caicos, the yellow, there's Virgin Islands in the green with the lady there, there's Cayman Islands with the turtle on it, there's Bermuda, as we know, with the red lion, and then there's Anguilla with the three dolphins. In 5 of those islands, the only island that's not been affected by gang violence is Montserrat, probably because the population is only about 5,000 persons, right? In each of the 5 islands, as this show is going to be aired regionally, in each of those 5 islands, there's been an uptick of same as what we've seen in Bermuda murders every year, right?
Yeah.
Different, whatever the reasons are, I don't know. But the point I'm getting at is that there are people who attempt to perpetrate that gang violence is only happening in Bermuda, and Bermuda's going on the drain and blah blah blah, right?
Yeah.
And one murder is too many, but most of these other countries are seeing murders, a little bit more than us, unfortunately, right?
Yeah.
These will be considered the more economically prosperous islands, if for lack of a better term.
Sure.
right? So it goes back to something that you said earlier, that we collectively as these islands are missing something. Something that's going something. There's no one answer, but
Yeah.
something's going awry where our young men are killing each other.
It's no doubt. I can, as we were talking before you came on air about one country that experienced 47 murders, and don't get me wrong. And I know this might be something that turns everybody to some degree. Bermuda, statistically, according to the National Violence Strategy, has actually declined in certain things just by the way of the charts itself. I mean, when I came in October 4th of 2017, there were four murders before I came in. And I done something that was quite interesting because I was looking at a something that one of my members who was an accountant had actually done up the business master's degree and so on. And they started to break down some. They were asking me certain things. I gave them certain information and so on. And while one murder is one murder too much, the truth of the matter is that when we look at Bermuda, which is total that I believe it's 107 murders, and from 2017, October 2017 to 2024, when that actually data actually stopped, the murder rate in Bermuda had declined by 21%. A lot of people talk and they say things without even checking facts and details, which is on the National Violence Strategy, and you can actually look at it. And we can start to see if we broke it up into intervals of eight, from 2009 when gang violence started to escalate to 2016, we can see almost a decline in gang violence from Bermuda. Now, some people don't like to hear that, but they want to know figures. Figures don't lie. And so when we start to look at what's actually in the actual number, we can actually see whereas in 2009 to 2016, there were 32 murders. And in 2017 to 24, there were 22 murders, which indicates a 31.25% reduction in murders in 2017 from 2017. Firearm, injuries from the period of 2009 to 2016. There were 86 compared to 2017 to 2024, which was 46, which we saw a 46.51% decline in injuries. When we start to base things on the National Violence Reduction Strategy, the total firearm and firearm fatalities and injuries in 2029, there was 118. And when we look at 2017 to 2024, there was 68. Again, we saw a 42.4% dropped, and I think sometimes we get so sidetracked by what's happening at present. We don't look at the long picture and what's actually happening. In 2009 to 2026, there were 48, murders, I'm sorry, accounts of firearm fatalities. But in 2017 to 24, there were 44. Keeping it, that was an 8.3%. However, with me coming in at October 4, 2017, four fatalities had taken place before I even had got there, which meant that it was 52 murders from that particular time, showing a 21% drop. But what I find at times in Bermuda, we have people that just want to be very negative rather than to go look at the facts, which is on the gang violence reduction, not gang violence, the violence reduction strategy. And you could see the figures, you could see the numbers there, you could see the decline there. Now that didn't take it into account. I noticed that from 26 to 206 to 208, which was 15. It was just breaking down in an eight-year interval. And I think it's important for us to understand exactly what's happening, because many times people say, what are they doing? What is he getting paid for? I mean, these are the things that people say, and I hear it constantly. And the question I ask is, why aren't you reading? And I know that might sound a little bold, but why are you not checking the stats? When you're just making comments without even, really checking things out to see what's what. Would I like to see it get a lot better than that? Definitely. I would like to see we're totally free, of murders. That would be my heart's desire. But the reality is that there is something at work, whether it be our programs with the youth, whether it be the IM programs and the certain the champions programs and the hype kings programs that we have in the school where we're seeing since 2018. I mean, we're seeing within our programs like the IM program is seeing over 400 kids, and we constantly follow up on these kids. We're still establishing programs in there. Our programs when it comes to redemption farm program, which deals with the older type clientele, where we actually teach them how to do resumes. We teach them financial budgeting. We teach them certain basic things that to equip them for certain things. And we had 100 people or so go through that, and then we have the high school, which has been 110. That's almost 600 and 600 odd people with from the time of 2017. We also we see almost close to 1,500 people a month. 1,500 people. Is everything counseling? No. Some of them are just check-ins. But what we do is we allow that to give us a pulse on the community to find what's happening. One of our biggest assets is building relationships and trust with those individuals and those families. Because when they have relationship and they start to trust you, you know what I mean? It's so easy for us to give direction, to facilitate them to a more positive means. And that requires us being out there every day, interacting with them, every day, and doing what we have to do so that we can find ourselves as a country, being a better place even in the future.
All right, so as we start winding down, we've got 3 minutes left. Thank you for that. Probably gonna have to have yourself and one of your team members or some of your team members on another day to talk about the specific programs. Today was just to find out who is Roy
Yeah,
and start getting into this because just like as Jesus said, the poor will always be amongst us, right? I'm not equating poverty to murders, but I'm simply saying that unfortunately we're not gonna eradicate ourselves of murders right away. So this has to be a long term conversation that we all embrace as a community because, as I said in the beginning, I grew up. You know, I grew up in an era where murder was like that was something we saw on TV, right?
yeah,
Now, for any young person who I don't know, 15, 20 years old, all their life they've grown up knowing about murders happening in Bermuda. They've known of a cousin got murdered or a cousin's friend getting somebody they knew got murdered, right?
yeah,
It's almost normalized, for lack of a better term, it's somewhat normalized now, right? Which is unfortunate.
yeah,
In the last 2 years, there's been four young men that I know personally that no longer here. There are two, three young men that I know personally that are being charged for have been charged for murder.
yeah,
So I say that as a black man and as a father, right? That no father wants to no father wants to get the call that your son's been murdered. No mother, nobody wants to get that call, but unfortunately, this is the reality. And I just want to say, as a black father, a Bermudian, right? Thank you for all that you and your team are out there doing.
thank
If no one else tells you thank you, I'm telling you thank you, right?
thank you.
And I know because I know Roy before Roy was pastor or doctor or MP. We didn't even talk about you becoming the MP, but that's another shoe.
Yeah,
I even forgot you was an MP for a minute. Sorry, my cousin. Yeah, I find it funny. Just a quick joke. When you got elected earlier this year, you said to, "Hey, I'm gonna rely on you for information." No, cause I was like, "Oh, finally, I'm the big cousin." No, like,
yeah,
but so I just want to thank you, and like I said, you have yourself and team members back because this is an ongoing conversation, and we have to be frank, right? We have to be frank. We can no longer just pull what we see in America and try to relate that to Bermuda. That don't relate to Bermuda,
Yeah,
right? Beyond the fact people are dead, that does not relate to Bermuda, right? And we
yeah,
have to be frank as fathers and as family members where we have failed our young men, right? Where we haven't, as Bishop, um, as Pastor Lamb did for you, pull you aside and put you on the right path,
sure.
right? Even when you were deviating or whatever, right? These are the
Yeah,
things we can't just say is no, not my business, not my business. We have to put ourselves on the front line for our young men, else too many of them are going to be up Westgate or Ron Chippers, right? This is the reality. So Bermuda and the rest of the Caribbean, I want to thank our media partners, Cayman Mall Road in Cayman Islands, Radio Turks and Caicos in Turks and Caicos Island, CBN Radio and TV in the Virgin Islands, and even here in Bermuda, Channel 82 with Lemon Woods. Thank you. We'll be back next week with another episode. No, sorry, this week. Later this week, we'll be back with another episode about Hurricane Melissa. But we will have my big cousin Roy back on at another time. Any
okay.
final words, Pastor Roy?
Well, I think that one of the things I would encourage families, so many times we have a tendency to always look from the outside. And I would say, I would encourage you to be honest and to look at what our children, what our family members, our neighbors are actually doing, because sometimes you're the key to the success. And so I would encourage you. It's about really each one, to identify one and to pour into that one, and to encourage them, and never look at your children as being a failure. Always see purpose, destiny, and the fulfillment of that there within our children. Thanks.
All right. God bless you, Bermuda.
Bless you.
I got a little pastor in me.